the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will review the weekend Serie A action as league football resumed after a horrific midweek in the Champions League for Italian teams. A late Lautaro Martinez goal over Genoa took Inter to the top of the table as Napoli continue to crumble as they lose 2-1 at Como ahead of the big Scudetto match this weekend. Atalanta enter the Scudetto race though as they thrash Empoli 5-0. Juventus, like Atalanta, respond to their Champions League humiliation as they get a crucial win at Cagliari to move clear in fourth place. Milan had a horror week as, in addition to being knocked out of the Champions League by Feyenoord, they lost 2-1 at Torino after another catastrophic blunder by one of their defenders. It was a bad week for all of the other top four chasers. Lazio struggle in a goalless draw. Bologna and Fiorentina both lose. And we'll also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie ASS of the week, with Jamie Carragher making a hat-trick of 3 Premfaces in a row. For all our first-time listeners, I can't speak this morning, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday, where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. We'll provide the link in the description. For all of you that listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. And also, please do subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. Go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/itafootspod for more details. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off with Napoli, who have lost top spot in the table. They lose 2-1 to Como, which means that ahead of the big Scudetto match this weekend at the Maradona between Napoli and Inter, Inter are now 1 point ahead of Napoli, and Napoli are really starting to fall apart now. They are 4 games now without a win. They've only got 3 points in that time, and they didn't play well at all here against Como. Certainly in the second half. The first half they were okay. The second half they were really, really poor. And it's got to the stage now with Napoli that really for most of the season they've not been playing particularly well. They've been average really for most of the season, and some games they've been playing bad, but they've been scraping wins. Now they're playing bad and they're not getting points either. And I think that there's a simple reason for that. It's something that I've said in the last weeks, that eventually it's not sustainable to keep winning by 1 goal, by playing badly, scraping wins. And that's shown by, as I said last week, if you look at the number of expected points that Napoli have this season, it's 10 points less than their actual number of points. That was the case before this game against Como. Eventually, that's not sustainable. If you keep playing like that, eventually you will return to the mean. That's just what happens. Even more so when you sell your best player in the middle of the season and you decide not to replace him and not strengthen your squad. And so I think that's what we're now seeing with Napoli. In this game, they just still, as has been the case, they don't create enough. They had an XG of 1 in this game. Their first half, their only real chance came from a terrible mistake from Como, which they scored. And in the second half, McTominay had a good chance, and Guisa had a kind of a half chance at the edge of the area, and that's about it really. But the added issue to that now, Nima, is that Napoli can't defend now either. That's what was keeping them going up until this bad run. They had the meanest defence in the league. They didn't concede at all. Now they're always conceding. I think it's 6 without a clean sheet, nine goals conceded in these last 6 games, and they're now conceding absurd goals, Milan-like goals, I call them. Where they just gift goals to the opposition, like the first goal, which is just a comical goal. But
Yeah.
even the second goal, the way that Como were able to create that chance for Dial to score so easily without even doing anything. It's and this is why Napoli are really starting to really fall apart now.
I think it's very obvious if you look at Napoli. You haven't won in 4 games, 3 draws, 1 loss. Very different draws if you look at each and every one of those. The Roma game, they were pretty much in control. They scored the first goal. They were in control. That goal by Angelino at the death really destabilized Napoli mentally, I think, because since then there's insecurities have crept in to what they're doing. They're not able to, that coupled with the injuries, which is forced to change in formation. There's insecurities now again. There's uncertainties creeping into how they defend, how they attack, everything about them. Whereas during that 7-win streak game, they looked much more certain. There was certainties in everything they did. Everyone knew what they were supposed to do. Everyone knew their roles, and so on and so forth. But ever since the disappointing January window, the injuries to Neres, that equalizer by Angelino, the things that have crept into how Napoli play, it's insecurities. There's an uncertainty about it, and at this point in the season, you shouldn't have that. You should be pushing on. Everything should be in place. I can't remember ever seeing an Antonio Conte side from February looking this much uncertainty and this many question marks around what they do. I think I don't want to take anything away from Como, because I think, we were speaking about this, that, look, Como away is not an easy game. Como are a tricky side. They can make life miserable for anyone, as we have seen. But it does suggest to me that Napoli have received a proper wake-up call now, a big slap to the face going into that Inter game at home at the Maradona. Whether it's a big blow to the Scudetto race or not, look, I think one thing we have to look this season in particular, regardless of whether it's Inter, Napoli, Atalanta, or even Juve who come back into this race, regardless of who wins it, I think it's evident that this season is not like the other seasons, where you had an outstanding Inter or an outstanding Napoli that just dominated from match day 1 to match day 30, and then was on cruise control. I think this season is a season where the first time since Sarri won the Scudetto, the team that wins it is a team that wins it with lots of question marks. Meaning the team that wins the Scudetto is the one that is able to, despite all the question marks surrounding them, are able to handle this race the best out of the others. Because there are question marks and deficiencies with all 4 of them. From Inter to Napoli to Juve to Atalanta, various different question marks and various different insecurities and uncertainties about how they perform and how they construct and how they build. It's not going to be that like we become used to, where you have one clear winner. Even Milan, when they won that 86 points, their spring was unbelievable. They were so clear. There was just a certainty about them. Napoli, same thing there. Inter last season, same thing there. This season, I don't think we're going to have a high enough point tally. I was looking, and it's pretty much going to end. It seems like with this form, we're looking at a point tally, a winner of 82, 83 points, which is what some of the lowest we've seen. I think the treble season, Inter won the Scudetto on 82 points, which was very low. I think we might see something like that, because So this thing is very wide open, and I do count Juve into that as well. I'm not prepared to write off Juve entirely either. I think it would be foolish at this point, given that if you look at where we are after 25, 26 games and how they perform, all of them, and how inconsistent they all are in their performances and their results. I think it's impossible to say who's going to win it at this point. But I'm not going to count out Napoli. I think there's more than ample enough time for them to recover. And it's a difficult, it's a special season. It's a very, very special season.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's looking like the best of a bad bunch might win the Scudetto this season.
No, it reminds me of Sarri's Juve. If you remember, they limped over the finish line. That's the feeling I get this season. It's not like it's been since then, where you had a Milan and Napoli and Inter, who all just looked so clear when they stormed to their titles. You're not going to get that this season. It's going to be they're going to limp over the finish line. They're going to stumble over the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, if we stick with Napoli on that first, at the moment, Napoli are definitely looking the worst out of the three teams at the top. I mean, physically, this is what's really poor. Physically, they just look really poor at the moment. Yes, they've got a few injuries, but not really that many injuries, and that brings us onto the squad. Napoli have got maybe 2 first-team players out at the moment. Their left back, Oliveira, and Neres, their attacker, and they're their only unavailable first players. So as soon as one player is out for Napoli, the player who comes in is pretty much relegation standard or mid-table players at best. Anguissa gets arrested in this game because he's diffidati for diffidati list for the game against Inter. Conte doesn't want to risk him getting a yellow card and being suspended. Who comes in? A Bournemouth reserve. Billing comes in and starts. Who did okay, but it's a Bournemouth reserve. Mazzocchi, who's already a relegation zone standard player, is out. Politano has to play at wing back. He needs to, if Conte needs to make subs in games, he has to, he wants to try and win this game. He has to resort to a striker, Simeone, who's got 2 goals in 2 seasons. This is what we're talking about with the squad. And, I don't want to repeat myself all the time, but Mana and De Laurentiis have killed Napoli season in January. They've killed it. I know I keep repeating myself, but it's so evident in these last matches. Selling Kvaratskhelia and not replacing him, either with a direct replacement or, as you've been saying in recent episodes, just using that money to strengthen the weak areas in the squad, so you don't have to use Philip Billing in midfield, or you don't have to use Politano as a wing back, or these other players, Juan Jesus as a centre back, as he has played not this last game against Como, but the 3 games before. It's insanity, and I'm surprised that Antonio Conte, because you predicted, he said as soon as he goes behind Inter in the title race, he's going to let blow. I'm surprised he didn't. I think he will after this weekend if Napoli don't beat Inter and they stay behind him. I think he will blow. He will blow after that. But it doesn't look good. I mean, Patrick Kendrick said to me last week, I don't know if he shared this publicly, but okay, I'm going to share it. He said to me that Napoli may have to soon worry more about the top 4 than the Scudetto race, looking at their form, the condition, the squad. I'm not sure about that, because I just can't see Juve, Milan, Lazio going on a big enough run to overtake Napoli. I think they've got enough of a gap, and those teams are just not playing well enough especially Juve and Milan. They're not playing well enough to suggest they can go on some amazing 8-game winning run or something. So I don't see that, but I do think that I do see the point that he's making, that right now, Napoli, they just don't look good. Physically, they don't look good. I mean, the first half, they were okay in this game. They had the play, they had the pressure, they were controlling the game, didn't really create much other than the goal that was scored from a mistake. But the second half, if you look at them physically, they just looked tired. They didn't have any energy. this Napoli team looked, and it has looked in the last few games, it's looked what it is, which is an old team and a team that has no pace at all. There is zero pace in this Napoli team. As soon as you take out Neres and Kvaratskhelia, there's nothing. There's no speed in the team. So how on earth can you pressure the opposition? Can you swarm the opposition? Can you stretch the opposition? You can't with this Napoli team because they're too slow. There's no pace in the team at all. And added to that is Lukaku, who really is starting to look old. I mean, he can't last longer than 70 minutes in games now. He gets subbed all the time, which I'm sure Conte does not want to do because Lukaku is so important to the way Antonio Conte's teams play, in the way that he holds up the play, brings others into play. Conte, trust me, Conte would not want to bring him off unless physically he's literally just not up to it. He's not up to it. Lukaku cannot. Once he gets to the 70 mark, he's off on his feet. I mean, he's exhausted. It looks like he needs to go to bed. He's and Simeone comes on, and Simeone. I mean, 2 goals in 2 seasons. That tells you the story of the level of replacements they have. So, like I said before, if I'm Antonio Conte, I'm absolutely furious for the January market, and it's a shame because Napoli were in a position in January where, honestly, I think right now, especially the way that Inter have been stuttering, Atalanta have caught up because of both of the stuttering. Napoli should be, I think, if they'd have had the proper January, Napoli should be about 5 or 6 points clear now, in my opinion, and they're 1 point behind.
Yeah, that's how it should have gone, but it's a special season this year. It's a very special season, especially at the top. And they are, it literally is going to be the best out of a bad bunch. And in the sense that, like I said, they have all kinds of deficiencies, which we're going to get to and go through each and every one of them later on. But with Napoli, the qualitative deficiency in attack is a real concern. I think the defensive issues, I'm not too worried about that because I think that's more just a glitch because of all the injuries that they've had, and he's kind of had to tweak tactically as well. And his teams are not, Conte teams are not very good at minor changes. They have one way, they have a very structured way of playing, and in order to play like that, all the pieces have to fall into place. Move one piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and the whole thing kind of comes out of rhythm. I think that's the main issue here. I think I'm not too worried about them defensively. I think they'll probably turn up against Inter and be outstanding defensively. And if they win against Inter, which is not impossible, I mean, if you look at Inter's big game record in the Serie A, it's atrocious. And the kind of football that Simone Inzaghi plays right into the hands of Antonio Conte in terms of defending deep and counter-attacking and systematically breaking the play and going from, similarly to what Thiago Motta did, to what Conceição has done, in the sense that you win the ball high up, you force Inter to move laterally, and they can't react after that because they just don't have the mental and physical strength this season to react. Last season was a completely different thing. This is a different Inter. So it's not impossible for that Napoli beat Inter. In fact, I'm not, I think if I'm perfectly honest with you, going into that game, I'm thinking at most a draw. That's what Inter should be trying to get. I just don't see them beating Napoli when they've got the Champions League coming up and they've got the Coppa Italia in midweek and they're already looking as tired as they are and they've got games coming every 3 days. I just don't think Inter have the
I think Napoli have to win this game.
Yeah.
I think if Napoli don't win this game, I think we can probably start to think about writing off Napoli Scudetto because I think they need the
boost.
they need the boost. Yeah,
Yeah,
the boost that
they
this
need
will
the
give
boost.
them might be able to help cloud over some of the clear issues and weaknesses that they have.
Momentum in
Give them the
football
push,
is
give them the
important.
mental push, and then maybe they can ride the crest of that wave and go on a bit of a run. If they don't get that boost from this game, I think we're going to just keep seeing these issues that we're seeing, and probably start to fall away. I think. But if we talk about Inter, Inter played badly as well. They against Genoa, they won 1-0, a late, rather fortuitous goal, to be honest, from Lautaro off a corner. Yeah, I mean, Inter were poor, Nima, but they got the win, and they from the positive point of view, they showed again what I've been saying. Inter can force wins like no other team because off corners, off crosses, off set pieces, they are world class. They are, I mean, statistically, they are the best team in Serie A off corners. They've scored more goals off corners than any team in Serie A, and they have the two best deliverers of corners in the league in Di Marco and in Çalhanoğlu, and Çalhanoğlu got the assist, and this just shows that even when Çalhanoğlu's not playing well and he's been struggling, you know, Inters are just so good on corners that they're always a danger, even in games where they're playing badly and they're not creating anything. They barely created anything in this game until their goal, to be honest. And I think that this is a big strength that they have. I think over the other teams, that they can force these
I
kind
don't
of
know.
wins.
Look, it is a sign of strength to win when you're playing badly. It is. There's no doubt about that. But Inter are built to dominate. They're built to impose themselves, control the midfield, rip teams apart by movement, overlaps, swarming teams essentially, and they're unable to do that this season. I think part of that is mainly because of mental and physical fatigue, but part of it is also that teams have learned how to defend against them. But more importantly, I think what Inter aren't able to do this season is that they're not able to do what they used to do in high enough speed. They do it, but it's slow. They don't have the energy. The ball isn't moving quickly enough. The movements aren't happening as quick enough. It's like one fraction of half a second too long all the time. And that gives teams enough chance to defend and formulate their defenses against them, which is all you need, really. Because, as I said, I think teams have started to find out a little bit how to play. In Serie A, for sure. Not as much in Europe. And that's a concern. And this game against Genoa, look, I think we should give credit to Genoa. They were really good. I think they defended really well. They neutralized Inter. But then again, Inter didn't exactly make life difficult for them either. It is a sign of strength to win when you're playing badly. And given that this is such a peculiar season in the sense that there's no consistency in performances from any of these teams, that could be enough to win the league. There's no doubt about that. But if I'm looking at, and also defensively, they're looking much more solid. They have recovered defensively, but so that could absolutely lead you to win a Scudetto. I mean, I remember watching Roberto Mancini's sides win Scudetti playing some of the most horrific anti-football I have seen in my life. I've seen many Serie A team winners end up with a trophy despite playing anti-football, right? So it's not impossible. It depends on the season that you're in. And this season, there is no one looks the clear candidate. So yes, of course, they are in a good position to win it. And it's match day 26 and they're top of the league now. But I look at this Inter side and I look at how they play, and it is like pulling teeth. It is so dreary and forced and just painful to watch. And you can tell that the players are getting frustrated as well. I mean, the fact that Lautaro celebrated the way that he did, like he scored the winner in the World Cup final, tells you how the players are feeling this as well. It's not working for them. It really isn't working for them this season. And right now, where you are in the season, you have to kind of let that go. We now know that Inter anno 2024-2025 is a team that is more Mourinho than it is Simone Inzaghi and Conte, in the sense that the Conte teams of Conte's Inter team, Simone Inzaghi's the two last Scudetto winning teams, they were teams who had a very clear attacking identity and they scored for fun. They created, they dominated. This is not that. This is more the Mourinho 2009-2010 teams where they scrape through in the league and save their good performances for the Champions League. That's just how I see it after 30 games or however many, 32, 33 games. That's the Inter we have. It could be something fantastic. It could end up, being historic. But if we're talking about Inter as where they are in their project, where they are in terms of for the future and so on, I think we really need to Inter need to do something in the summer because they're looking older, the average age is higher, and it's starting to look stale. It really is. Now, like I said last week, I don't know if that means moving away from Simone. I don't know if it means moving away from whichever player. That's for Marotta and them to do their analysis and decide. I really don't know. I have no opinion on it. But what I do know is that they can't continue like this, because if they continue like this, the post-treble depression that lasted for a decade could come back to haunt them soon. They need to freshen things up in the summer. But until then, this is who they are. These are the players they've got. This is where they are. And they need to manage their energy levels. And that's why I'm a little bit worried when I see that Inzaghi's not going to rotate when he's playing in the Coppa Italia. And then he's got Napoli. And then he's got Feyenoord. And then he's got Monza. And then he's got Feyenoord. And then he's got Atalanta. And he's basically going on playing 7-8 starters all of these games. That to me is suicide. But to me, that is a recipe for disaster. But again, if they get the results, winners write history. And if they would get the results and they come out on the other side, top of the league, gone through to the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia, beaten Feyenoord in the quarterfinals, which the draw looks really good for them, then April is different. But I do think that it's a risk what Inzaghi's doing right now. He's risking it. And I understand why he's doing it, because he feels he can't trust the others, which, again, in and of itself is an indictment on the depth of this squad or the lack thereof.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Inter were very bad in this game, and they have looked, like we saw in the second half of the Juventus game, they have looked like a team that's physically flat, and maybe a sign of, like you said, a bit of an aging team, a bit of a tired team, a bit of maybe a physically declining team. And I agree with you over the looking further ahead of the future, wherein to go from next season. I think they definitely need to freshen up some areas of the team. I think we've definitely seen a decline in midfield this season, and that area. I know they brought in the youngster Sucic. I don't know how much about him, how good he is. So I guess that's one player that they already have addressed there. But you look at Çalhanoğlu, you look at Mkhitaryan, even Barella has been often hit and miss, I think, for quite a few years.
Very inconsistent this season.
Physically, very hit and miss. I would go far back as to the Euro 2020. In 2021, I would say he's physically been up and down for a long time there, where some games he's looked exhausted, some games he's been brilliant. So, I think the midfield is an issue. But if we're looking at this season, I think Inter should still win the league, because Napoli is so average. Atalanta are so inconsistent and have a horror run coming up. I think Inter should win the league this season. But I think it will also depend on Inter keeping their. I think, put it this way: if Inter have Lautaro and Thuram fit from now until the end of the season, Inter win the league for me.
Yeah, but Thuram isn't starting though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Thuram and Lautaro are fit from now until the end of the season, or for the 90% of the rest from now until the end of the season, I think Inter win the league. Where Inter start to struggle is when one of those two is out, and we saw that again in this game. Thuram didn't play this game, and Inter are offensively, their offense falls off a cliff, because the players that come in are all abysmal. They're just all of them. Every single one of them are just not good enough, and we saw that in this game. Correa started, did absolutely nothing, then got injured. Taremi come on. Did a bit better. He's a bit better at linking the play and everything, but is completely impotent in terms of scoring or creating goals. So Inter struggle. They struggle in attack. So I think it's key for if Thuram and Lautaro both play regularly between now and the end of the season, I think Inter win the league. If not, then yeah, we could get more of these kind of games, even against the smaller teams where
Without a
they
doubt.
struggle to break down teams, maybe, which is what adds to what we were saying before, that it then becomes the best of a bad bunch. Right now, I still think will win the league, but it was Genoa played well. I have to say, from Genoa's point of view. Um, I have to say, Vieira's done a great job at Genoa. Fair play.
Mm,
I'll be honest. I didn't rate him
mm,
ever since I watched him go on TV before during the group stages of Euro 2020, and I saw him talk the worst analysis I've ever seen, where he basically said Italy had no quality, lacked intensity in their team, and couldn't press, and which was completely opposite of what that
mm,
team was at that time. And I just thought
yeah.
this guy clearly hasn't got a clue about football. And from that, I deduced that this guy couldn't manage. He didn't do
I
particularly
think he
well.
did all right at Crystal Palace,
He
didn't
did.
he?
He started okay. Then he was. Then they fell. Then they
Mm,
collapsed. He's done really great at Genoa. I have to say, hands off. And he was one of them. As a player, I loved him.
mm.
He's one of
Yeah,
the
it's
best
a
players of his
fantastic player.
generation. He was incredible.
It's a
As a manager, I
fantastic
thought he
player.
was a joke. He's done a great job at Genoa. I have to say, fair play. It's
He
still early.
stabilized them. He's
Mm.
really stabilized them in a situation that wasn't easy either. I mean, coming into some, you had ownership changes and you had, all these other issues, and they got, they sold Goodmanson and Retegui in the summer, and it was not an easy situation, but he's handled it really well. But no, look, I look at this Scudetto race, and I'm not even prepared to discount Juve from it. That's how poor I think the four of them are up front in terms of consistency. I think Atalanta are monsters in terms of chance creation and goal scoring. They're probably the best in the Serie A. They have the most potent, informed strikers. They have their football works the best right now in terms of attack, but defensively, I have massive questions. Napoli right now they've not really been good in attack all season. Defensively, they're cracking a bit. I think they'll address that, but the attack is going to be a problem even if Neres comes back. Inter look mentally and physically exhausted. We don't know what kind of Inter we're getting. It looks painful when they attack. It looks like there's no energy or geist about them. And then you have Juve, who have had a disastrous roller coaster of a season, but are only 8 points behind with 12 matches left to play. So, and if you look at the run, I mean, it's not, they don't have that many difficult games left, Juve. I mean, it's Lazio, Bologna away, and Roma, or Fiorentina, Atalanta. I mean, the rest of those games are very, very winnable. I think Juve are looking upwards in the table more than downwards, if I'm perfectly honest with you. And it's a strange season. It really is a strange season. It has lots of twists and turns, and they all have their problems. So I think it's going to be, the winner's going to be the best of a bad bunch.
Yeah, Juve. I don't think we could be serious at this stage at all. But the way that they're playing, but yeah, I mean, we'll see, and we'll see after next week if they can close the gap a little bit. If we talk about Atalanta, though, they definitely enter the race. I mean, 5-0 thrashing of Empoli. It's a good response to the Champions League exit after going out to Club Bruges. 3 points behind Inter now, 2 points behind Napoli. Venezia at home next. Napoli play Inter. So if Atalanta win, then their Scudetto position will be stronger. They'll gain either 3 points on one team or 2 points on two teams. So yeah, that's good. But then they do have a horror run of fixtures. I mean, let me tell
Yeah,
you this run of fixtures after that.
yeah,
Juventus away, Inter home, Fiorentina away, Lazio home, Bologna home, Milan away. I think they have Roma a few weeks after that as well.
yeah.
I mean, that's a horror run. It's difficult to see them put in a.
But having said that, whenever we've had these horror runs by a Scudetto candidate, it feels that they've gone on and done really well. When Milan won the league, they had a horror run. They won every single one of those games. Napoli had a horror run. They went on a seven win stretch games, 7-win run. So let's it defies logic a little bit this season, or the Serie A a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, but if they beat Venezia and Inter and Milan draw, they're what? They'll be 1 point behind Inter, and momentum is very important in football. Then they go into that Juve game 1 point behind Inter, and then they play Inter the week after that. If it is a situation, if Inter, for example, lose to Napoli, and they drop points against Monza, well, Atalanta could be in the lead. I mean, it's not impossible. So what I'm saying is momentum matters. But yeah, they do have an absolutely horrific run. There's no doubt about that. And they're far from favourites to win it. Inter are still the favourites. There's no doubt about that. Make no mistake about it. But that, again, ties again to my point about I think all of the teams in the top four have deficiencies and there's no real clear front runner. I think you can make an argument for all of them, both in terms of weaknesses and also strengths rather, and also against them in terms of weaknesses. It's going to be a very interesting Scudetto battle to the next 4 or 5 weeks. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just a quick note on Atalanta on the game itself. Retegui scores again. 21 goals in Serie A now, 6 ahead of second place. I think we can 100% crown him as the top scorer in Capocannoniere now. The only thing I would say about Retegui is he didn't play well in the Champions League this season. So that's
the final step, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the final step.
Yeah, look, it's clear with him that he's taken huge strides this season, and they have been huge in his overall play. His goal scoring and aerial ability is, his killer in the box and his heading. We know how he's always been good at that. But he's taken huge strides in his pressing, his passing, his link up, back against the goal, putting others into play, showing his read of the game, knowing when to drop, when to push forward. He working in a system. He's taken huge strides. But in order for you to become the elite striker, when it's mattered the most in the Champions League, he has come up short this season. But that's okay because he's not old. There's time for him to improve. Yeah. And I'm glad in a way that he everything that he didn't have this like magical season where everything just clicked, that there is still room for improvement. Because I believe that when you take these step-by-step improvements, I think that kind of
makes you hungry as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes you keep working
exactly.
as well.
It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you working hard. It keeps you focused. So I'm kind of glad in a way for the national team and for him that maybe this season in the Serie A, in the Champions League, he was a bit of a disappointment. That's good for him. But in the Serie A, he's been a certainty. And he's been by far the best striker in the Serie A. I don't think anyone comes close to him. He's been so good at everything. Penalty taking is something he needs to work on. He overworks penalties. I think that when it comes to penalties, he should probably more rely on his power than he does with this kind of hop skip nonsense. But that's really just.
Let's talk though, Nima, about Lookman. Ademola Lookman versus Gian Piero Gasperini this week. The war that has erupted between the manager and the star player, and it's not over after this game. On the pitch, Lookman scored 2 goals in this game, 2 class goals. I mean, the dribble for the first goal, the way that he put his studs over the boot to take it around the goalkeeper and then score. And then the second goal, step over to the left, finished with his left foot. I mean, magnificent. He was missed. First of all, we can say that we can see how much he was missed in that tie against Club Brugge. If he'd have played both games against Club Brugge, would there have been a different outcome to that tie? I mean, I think we've definitely seen that Lookman, how much he elevates this Atalanta team. I mean, for me, I think there's an argument to say he's the best player in the league this season. I think he's magnificent, absolutely magnificent. But obviously, the big talking point is what happened this week. We spoke about it a little bit on the Thursday show, but it's still rumbling on, whereby in the game against Club Brugge, Atalanta got a penalty in the second half at 3-1 down, 60th on the hour mark. The penalty takers are usually Retegui. Second penalty taker is De Ketelaere. But Lookman stepped up to take the penalty. He missed it. It was saved. And after the game finished 3-1. Atalanta went out. And after the game, Gasperini publicly criticised, well, not just criticised Lookman, he absolutely hammered him, saying that he's one of the worst penalty takers he's ever seen, slamming him for taking the penalty when there's two penalty takers before him. Lookman responded to that by putting out a statement on social media, which I think both of us agreed was a really fantastic statement. Very, very gentlemanly.
It hit every right note.
Yeah, hit every right note. Basically said how disappointed he was, how he felt disrespected, but at the same time, said that that he will, how much he loves the club, loves the fans, and that he will keep playing for them and everything. And I thought it was great. Anyway,
and then Gasperini comes out 3 days ago in a pre-game press conference, or 2 days ago, and says that he's not going to extend his contract with Atalanta. It expires in June 2026, and we have to decide whether or not we continue past this season. So essentially saying that he's going to leave Atalanta, maybe even at the end of this season.
End of the season, yeah. But he also said in that same pre-match press conference that he, which is ridiculous if true, if he really thinks this, he said that he didn't mean to offend Lookman. Which is ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like if you
can't say that he's the worst penalty taker of a player that you've ever had in your life. He can't even score in training, and then say that you meant no offense. Yeah. I mean, are you serious? No. What happened is you embarrassed yourself. You made yourself look like an idiot by saying that he took the penalty off his teammates, which he didn't, because evidently you just confirmed by saying that Lookman was given the ball to take the penalty by designated penalty takers, and he stepped up and took the responsibility. Now, this is what he does. This is why I think he can't work at a big club. Everyone can read situations wrong, but when he does, he over exaggerates. He doesn't need to say things like the worst penalty taker of a player I've ever had. He doesn't need to say these things. And when he does say these things, and it turns out that he completely got all the facts wrong, that Lookman didn't take the penalty from anyone, but was offered it to by his teammates, then he can't even come out and apologize, and instead digs his heels in and says, no, I wasn't offending him. I don't understand why he's offended, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just... This is why he can't. This is why he couldn't work. This is why he will never be at a big club, and he can't work with big players. You can't humiliate big players like that. And Ademola Lookman is a big player, and I think Ademola Lookman has shown unbelievable maturity and class by the way that he handled this. I mean,
and showing also that it didn't affect his performance, because he comes out and scores two brilliant goals.
2 goals, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he has shown that he is a model professional, that this is how you behave. He has done everything perfectly. He's won this war with Gasperini by TKO.
Brilliant. But just to finish off, at the end of this game, Gasperini in his post-match, again, he praised, to be fair to Gasperini, he praised Lookman and said what an incredible player he is, extraordinary player, fantastic, which is great. But he also doubled down by saying that, he stands by what he said, in the sense that he didn't like that he took the penalty. He took the penalty off the other players, even though Lookman...
Not true.
Lookman said that the other players, like Retegui and De Ketelaere, wanted him to take the penalty. And Gasperini said that he thought that a great champion like Lookman should have basically said to them, no, you take the penalty. Which is,
I mean,
yeah.
Anyway, so that's stupid.
So Lookman, just to finish it, Lookman in his post-match to this game against who did they beat 5-0? I can't even remember now. Empoli. This post-Empoli game is so exhausting. He was asked at the end, is it all over now? Have you buried the hatchet with Gasperini? And Lookman basically didn't answer. And then as he was walking away, he said, finished? Like, question, like he was finished? Like, as in, basically saying it's not over between them. So
Of
there's
course, it's
clearly,
not.
there's
Of
clearly
course, it's
issues
not.
there.
And it won't be over because until Gasperini apologizes, and Gasperini is a stubborn old mule. He's never going to apologize. This is who he is. This is someone. He threw Papu Gomez out of the club. He goes to war with players. I mean, this is the character he is. I mean, we all remember. I know it's funny and ha ha ha, but we all remember him getting into an argument with fans from his car, throwing panino at them. I mean, it's like this is who he is, you know. Like we've all seen that. Like, this is the character that he has. This is who he is. He doesn't admit mistakes. He's very, very Italian old school, even though the football he plays is very modern. Similar to Sarri, his leadership style is archaic.
I've met Gasperini, and he was a really, really lovely guy. But obviously, his management with his squad is just not.
I'm
Just
sorry,
not
but
up
these
to it.
dictatorial things that he does, and telling players that they can't ride together to work, to Mele driving, or was it Hoyland who drove who drove Mele to, or the other way around? One of them drove the other to training, and Gasperini was furious at them for they were carpooling together.
That's right.
Because he wanted the players to drive alone and focus. I mean, what the hell, dude?
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, who cares?
He definitely has a bit of a weird side to him, doesn't he?
But these
I think
dictatorial
for sure.
things.
I mean, what does this
he
mean?
wants to dictate to the players how they walk, talk, eat, breathe, drives, sleep, shit. I mean, dude, like,
what this means, though, this doesn't change anything about Lookman's future.
no, he's going to leave in the summer.
Gasperini's, we'll see. Look, Lookman, I can tell you, Lookman was always going to leave at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, that's been decided. When he nearly left last summer for PSG, didn't play those games at the start of the season, it was agreed with him, stay one more season, we'll sell you at the end of the season. So that this doesn't change anything. That the only concern I had, which I said before the game, was: is this going to affect Atalanta? Is this going to affect Lookman's performance? Or is it going to select the selection process of Gasperini? I think we had those questions answered.
It's not going to affect at all, because Lookman is a model professional who understands, is very mature, and understands that he needs to deliver week on, week out, regardless of who the manager is and his ridiculous behavior, and that he has won this war. Lookman is in a fantastic position. He has shown throughout this entire ordeal how a champion behaves, a true champion behaves. And his coach has made himself look like an idiot and is stubborn and refuses to apologize. Lookman doesn't need to do anything. He just needs to continue being a professional, being calm, delivering in training, delivering on the pitch. And, by the end of after the end of the season, if they do write history and win the Scudetto, it's like the most epic mic drop moment ever. I'm out. Goodbye. I gave you, I won you the league. I won you the Europa League. I'm out of here. And that's that.
Yeah, that is that. Just finally on Atalanta, talking about inconsistency, very strange to 2025. Like their record is very poor. 1-4, drawn 5, lost 5 in 2025 in all competitions, which makes it even more remarkable that they're back in the Scudetto race and 3 points off the top of the table with a record like that. I mean, I think that reinforces what we were just saying about the best of a bad bunch. That they can be 3 points off the top of the table with 4 wins in their last 14 games. I know this is all competitions, but still, just shows you how they're playing.
And if you look at Inter, they're top of the table after losing to Juve, Fiorentina, and drawing Milan. Like, those important games, Inter take 4 out of 12, and they're top of the league.
Yeah, exactly. It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. But I mean, the inconsistency with Atalanta is very strange, because despite that record, I've said that in 2025, they've had 3 5-0 wins in 2025, which is mad. So it's like, what Atalanta are you going to get? And it's really difficult. They've actually had, and this is insane, they've had 6 wins this season by 5 goals, by the margin of 5 goals. 4 5-0 wins and 2 6-1 wins. Absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. You just do not know what you're going to get with Atalanta. With Juventus, I guess you don't also know what you're going to get with Juventus. between in games, let's say, because Juventus, the last three matches, they played one good half and one terrible half in both games. Against Inter, they were horrible in the first half and then were excellent in the second half. Against PSV, when they went out of the Champions League, they were good in the first half, didn't concede a single shot virtually in the first half, then got absolutely battered from in the second half and extra time with chance after chance for PSV. And then in this game against Cagliari, Juventus put in my opinion, their best half of the season in terms of performance. That is, in the first half, they were 1-0 ahead. They should have been 3 or 4 up. They created lots of chances. They dominated. They looked like really good physically. They were pressing. They were putting some really good team moves together. Good passing moves. The kind of stuff that we haven't seen at all this season. Even Vlahovic scored and was playing well after he was restored to the lineup. But then the second half, they just disappeared. They completely disappeared. Apart from a Vlahovic chance when he should have had the penalty, which we'll come to after, they just disappeared. And they didn't concede any chances. Cagliari created nothing. But just very strange how Juventus can go from the difference between halves that we're seeing recently. But they won. The good news is that they've got 4 wins in a row, and even though some are starting to make suggestions of Scudetto, I mean, I think that's crazy at this stage. That's the way that they're playing overall. That they're 8 points off the top. Let's wait a little bit, but. What this weekend was massive for Juventus is the top 4 race, because it was a huge weekend for Juventus. All their rivals for the top 4 slipped up. Lazio drew, Milan lost, Bologna lost, Fiorentina lost. Juventus got the 3 points. It means that they move into 4th place alone. They're 2 points ahead of Lazio. They're now 8 ahead of Milan, who do have a game in hand against Bologna this week, but obviously that's not an easy game. But more importantly, this weekend, Juventus have a home game against Verona, whereas Lazio play against Milan. So they will gain, if they win that game, they will gain on at least one of them. And if they're lucky and that's a draw, they can gain 2 points on both of them. And then they're looking like they're in the certainly in the driving seat for that 4th place, which has been, well, all season, it's been a very precarious position that Juventus have found themselves in. And we know how important 4th place is for Juventus this season,
It's
because it's a
fundamentally
financial
important.
meltdown if they don't
Yeah.
get in the top 4. So
No,
it
it's
was
fundamentally.
a massive weekend for Juventus. They just need to look at it from that point of view first and foremost.
I think whether or not Juventus are Scudetto challengers or not will be decided when they play Atalanta. If they win that game, their title credentials will be really put to the test in that game. If they win that game, then we have to say that they are in this, because, like I said, there's not going to be a clear team that wins by 5-6 points. This is going all the way to the wire, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's a 3 or 4 horse race all the way to the wire. The way that these teams are so inconsistent, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's no way that Juventus can even start thinking about Scudetto. They need to focus on the top 4, make sure that they qualify for the top 4, because that's going to be a big battle for them. Juventus are not playing well enough at all to think that they can the top 4 is going to be easy. So they need to keep playing, and they need to make sure that they win this weekend, and hopefully for Juve's sake open up a little bit of a gap there over Lazio and Milan. They need to try and take the positives out of this game, which is the first half, as I said, which was an excellent performance, and Vlahovic was a big positive in the first half. And they need to try and avoid what happened in the second half, which is they just stopped playing. Physically, they don't seem to be able to play for 90 minutes at all at the same pace or same level. They completely fell away physically in that second half. So yeah, it's a positive. It's a good response after what was a horrific, humiliating defeat to PSV, and the manner of that defeat, the way they got completely destroyed, really, from the second half onwards. But there are negatives in this game. The injuries. Juventus have had 4 injuries in 4 days over the last 4 days. The injury to Cambiasso and to Douglas Luiz in this match, and then we had Vega injured in the Champions League game, and then also Savona's injury. So, I mean, Juventus's injury list is now starting. The injuries are starting to pile up again. And it's a muscular injury for Cambiasso, and he's so important for Juve. It's a massive, massive blow. So and also who's going to play in defence? I mean, they've got so many defenders out now. Is absolutely mad. I mean, Rui had to come on at the end of this game, and this guy is so off Serie A level. It's not even it's scary how far off the level. So he definitely can't play. But yeah, Juventus get the win. Not really too much to add, really. Other than that, I thought there was quite a few good individual performances in the first half, apart from maybe Koopmeiners. And that's it. The only other point I wanted to make was just a general VAR point about this Vlahovic penalty. It didn't affect the game, but it's absolutely insane that this is not given as a penalty. He's clean through on goal, and Luperto pushes him with 2 hands in the back. Blatant push, makes no attempt for the ball at all. Vlahovic is pushed off balance and does go down, but after he took the shot, which was saved, but obviously the push prevents him from scoring. The VAR, I think they looked at it, but
yeah, they did. If the referee says that he's seen the situation and he thinks it's okay, there's not much. They can recommend on-field review, but the referee can say no. But you have to remember that the VAR can't force the referee to look at it.
If that's what's happened,
Yeah, if they looked at it.
Either way, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I laughed when I saw that because I've how. What?
It comes down to what we discussed. If the VAR has decided not to give that, and it's the VAR's fault, it's ridiculous. But if, like you said, the referee has decided not to give it because he saw
no,
it
I don't
on the
think
pitch,
that warrants a penalty.
Then it's a protocol. Then it's again comes down to the VAR protocol and what should be given and what shouldn't be given, and the VAR is supposed to be brought in to correct.
It was insane to me how. The reason I laughed is because you can't. It's a proper push to the back. He's not anywhere near the ball. He's behind. Vlahovic is in complete control of the ball. That's not just a penalty. That's a dog so. To me, that's a red card.
Yeah, of course it is. Well, it's a red card for a penalty if you make no attempt to win the ball, which is what he did. So it's
that's what I mean. It's just I didn't. I started laughing. I was like, what? That was my reaction to that. What?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, there's 2 other aspects to this. Number one, generally in history, penalties don't get given when the player doesn't go down. So the fact that Vlahovic is kind of naively honest here a little bit and tries to take a shot and score has probably cost him, because if he goes down, then that has to be given as a penalty. And then a red card, like you said. But he's tried to shoot and he scored, and generally, historically, refs don't give penalties when the player doesn't go down. So there's that, but it's also going against, and we've seen a lot of this in the last week, that they're trying to eliminate diving in a week where we've seen Teo Hernandez sent off for diving. Well, I'm sorry, but this is encouraging diving by not giving a penalty for this. Because what it's telling players is it's saying, well, see, this is what happens when you don't go down, when you try and stay on your feet. You don't get given a penalty. So really, this is a double own goal I think
No, it was the wrong call. That's a penalty, for crying out loud. It's not.
Yeah, it didn't matter. At the end of the day, it didn't matter.
No, but
So
it's a crazy decision.
It's not a big deal. It's a big deal when it
No, but
affects.
it's a crazy, stupid
Yeah, it's a
decision.
big deal when it affects a game, but it just hammers home like what a farce, VAR has become really in the last weeks.
I think it's confused. I think it's the problem when you change things mid seasons. The problem throughout the course of a season, when you don't have consistency and you don't seem to be able to communicate what's right and what's wrong and how you want to use it, and it feels like it fluctuates their evaluation. And when you do that, you're messing with the stability of the referees, and the players don't know what the rules are anymore, what the interpretations are. It causes chaos. It's not. They need to sit down. What they need to do, and I've said this from the beginning, they need to define what clear and obvious error is. Much more clearer than they are doing now, where they say that if 10 people in a room say it's the wrong decision, that's the definition. That's too wishy-washy. You need to have clearer protocols for what constitutes a clear and obvious error, how it works, so that you basically protect the referees from this as well, because they look confused right now. And it just hammers home my point that Rocky is useless. He is useless, and he shouldn't be there. And the open VAR thing they do just creates more confusion. And then they punish one referee, and then they, send him to Serie B, and then, there's no consistency to what they're doing. There's no clarity. They're not good at communicating. I really wish they would bring in someone else other than Rocky. I think he's utterly useless. I really do. I think I've always thought he was useless, and now under him, it's become a complete farce.
No, for sure. Unfortunately, though, it's not just a Serie A. It's not just Serie A only. It's everywhere. As we saw with the Champions League in the last fortnight with Atalanta especially. Let's move on to Milan. Talking of Champions League, what a horror week for Milan. Nightmare week for Milan. Out of the Champions League to Feyenoord, and then lose to Torino. And I think that Sergio Conceição after the game completely summed up everything that I wanted to say about Milan after this match. And he said, I quote, "The last 12 to 15 goals we've conceded were pretty much all unforced errors. It's not about strategy or formations. These are things that I often wonder how they are even possible." Obviously, he's referring mainly, but I would even say for both goals, but mainly, obviously, for the first goal in this game, which is a comical own goal from Thiaw, who is.
I think people are blaming Thiaw, but I'm like, that's what's Magnon doing?
Yeah, I think it's more on Magnon, but I think it's a bit for both of them, a bit of both of them. I mean, Thiaw's running back, and Magnon's there to clear the ball. He's got to try and
smashes it onto him.
He's got to try and make some effort to at least get out of the way, but at the same time, Magnon should just boot the ball into touch. He shouldn't be trying to kick it straight through him like you're not going to kick through a wall. Do you know what I mean? The ball can't go through him. Do you know what I mean?
To me, that's Magnon. What is he supposed to do? Like, Thiaw is trying to hold off, to give the goalkeeper enough time to kick the ball out, and the goalkeeper smacks it into him.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. I think it's definitely much more the fault of Magnon. But also,
I see people making fun of Thiaw and criticizing him. I'm like, well, okay, of course, there was miscommunication, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was going to say,
there's nothing. What can he do when the ball is hit onto him?
Yeah, there's a communication issue. There's also generally defenders are taught that at the last second when this happens, you should try and get out of the way to create a space, especially when he sees he's about to kick it. But yes, I think Magnon is definitely much more to blame than Thiaw with that. I don't know why he's trying to kick straight through him. But yeah, listen, I think that is a microcosm of Milan's season. It sums up Milan's season, and it sums up even like what we're seeing under Conceição. They are
It's a mess.
They are conceding, not just conceding like goals like this, but they're throwing away matches with just the most ridiculous blunders and errors. Whether that's through a goalkeeping mistake from Maignan, like we saw in the first leg of the playoffs in the Champions League against Feyenoord, whether it's an act of absolute madness from Matteo Hernandez getting himself sent off in the second leg, whether it's defensive errors, like some of the goals that they've conceded this season. Like remember the game against Cagliari, all those ridiculous blunders at the back post, crosses at the back post. Or whether it's a Gabbia blunder in that game against Dinamo Zagreb. Or whether it's just self-inflicted with, you have a penalty and you steal the ball off your penalty taker and then they miss it. The most inexplicable, just ridiculous mistakes that are costing Milan, often in games where they are clearly the best team. In this game, in the first half, and Conceição said this, Conceição said at half-time, Torino hadn't even had a single shot in the entire match and were 1-0 up. And that sums up. I mean, you look at the overall game in this match, they had 26 shots, Milan. They had an XG of 2.3 to 0.36. They miss a penalty in this game. Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, who we'll come to, was making miracles. Yet they lose this game because of themselves.
Yeah,
because
they throw away points. They throw away games.
Yeah, so it's not about strategy or formations. I agree with Conceição. The reason why Milan probably have 10 points less than they should have this season, not because of strategy or because of formations, or even necessarily because of Leao can't fit into a team.
No,
and Theo,
it's bigger than that. It's bigger. This isn't about Leao's inconsistency. This is bigger than that. I think it's got to do I put the blame squarely at the strategy of since Pioli left, where they have gotten everything wrong in the sense of how to construct a team. It's so confused and muddled. They have players. The fact that you have this many individual howlers and cartoonish individual howlers, and it keeps happening over and over and over again. To me, that is that's on how you've built the squad. There's no coherent squad building here. That's what this isn't that I put it on that. The fact that there's confusion at Milan. The players are confused. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They've had 3 coaches in less than 9 months doing 3 different things. Players have been signed in September who were sent out in January. They wanted to send players away like Royal. They couldn't because he injured himself because he was playing when he was already in talks with. I mean, it's chaos, complete chaos. And that kind of confusion, I think, is just why Milan are so inconsistent. There's no clarity on how they want to play. The construction of the squad is a mess in terms of, again, confusion, and that's why it looks the way it does. This isn't about Theo Hernandez, fake diving, getting sent off. This has been going on all season. They make cartoonish mistakes to the point where you're wondering if this is for real. So I think he's absolutely spot on. I think his analysis of that, I saw him saying that, and I was like, yeah, I agree with that. It's a comedy of errors, and they concede comical goals time and time again, and I don't understand. I mean, is it because have we reached the point with Milan where you have to say, okay, you need to clear out the sporting, the people in charge of the sporting project, bring them in, bring new people in, and those people who are in, you have to give them the chance to fix this squad. Is the squad mentally so broken, and overall, I mean, not every player, but overall, is the construction of the squad so poor, mentally so broken, that you need to clear them out? You can't salvage this. I don't know. I really don't know. But I think after this season, you talk about Juve having a nightmare season. I don't know what to call what Milan have gone through this season. It's been weird. Like, high highs, winning the Supercoppa, coming back at the death, showing grit and desire, and then these kinds of matches and performances where Like you said, like Conceição said, Torino were in the lead without having a shot on goal. It's like,
It just
what do
sums.
you
That's what
even?
I mean. It sums up Milan's season, and I
Yeah,
actually, I had a little. I was studying through like Milan's games under Conceição, and a lot of games that they've had like they've really dominated games under Conceição,
yeah,
and not
yeah,
won those games. And you think,
yeah.
how the hell did they not win those matches? And I include Feyenoord in that game as well.
Absolutely.
This game, there was another one where they drew 1-1, wasn't it? Towards the start of Conceição's reign as well, where they completely dominated the next year of like 3 or something and didn't win. Like, there's a lot of these games. So I do feel like, they've not got. They definitely have not got as many points as they deserve based on the performances because of these just inexplicable
Brain
blunders.
farts.
Brain
Brain
farts.
farts. Like meltdowns. Like where they are in control of a game and you're just waiting for them to score and then someone loses their mind.
Yeah.
Gabbia and Musa in the Champions League. That game was a game that Milan should have won. And they would have they won it, they would have been in the top 8.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and then you have Mignon's howler against Feyenoord. And then you have Teo's breakdown in that the stupidity he did there in the return leg when they were in complete control. Like these kinds of things, they break a team mentally. When you are this much better, but someone loses their mind and gifts away wins and points like that, this can break a team mentally. This can break players mentally, and that's why I bring up the point about complete overhaul of the project and both the technical staff and the playing staff, because it makes no sense. There's no logic to this at all.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very, very important week for Milan. Bologna and Lazio, they need 6 points. If they don't take 6 points, I'm ready to say that they're out of the top 4.
Definitely, they need 4. I would say they
Six,
definitely need 4.
need 6 because it's not just Lazio. It's Juve. They got Fiorentina ahead of them. Fiorentina falling behind. They need to beat Bologna. That brings them on 44. They beat Lazio. They go equal with Lazio on 47. They need to be equal with Lazio. Otherwise, I struggle if they even overtake Lazio. I struggle to see that they do that. They need. This is a very important week for Milan.
Yeah, it is a very important week. They need to. They need to. I mean, they'll be level on games. They've been playing catch up a lot because of the fact that they've always had this game in hand. But they're 8 points behind Juventus, so they definitely need to close that gap. They can't be at the end of this week. They can't be, let's say, 6 points or more behind Juventus. Otherwise, it is going to really be a very much an uphill struggle to get 4th place. And you need 4th place, as we've explained, because
but it's for Milan. It's not a disaster because Milan are much better financially run than all the other clubs except for Atalanta and Napoli, who are actually really well run. But compared to the others, Milan are actually they can survive one season outside of the
they can
Champions
survive
League.
it financially. But
Yeah,
if we're talking about the sporting project, everything that comes with it, keeping your best players, keeping everyone happy, attracting top players when they're not in the Champions League, it just puts the project back, doesn't it? And also
of course
it
it does.
adds to all the chaos off the pitch and the club, the fans who are chanting for Cardinale to sell every single game and all that. I mean, it's then there's the coaching situation. Who do
Yeah,
you bring
does
in as coach?
Conceição
I mean,
continue?
it puts the project in disarray.
I mean,
Financially, yes, but sportingly,
we could
no.
be in a situation in June where Milan bring in a 4th coach in 12 months.
Yeah,
If that doesn't tell you that the sporting directors and the technical staff in terms of the sporting management side have failed, I don't know what will. Because regardless how you feel about Zlatan, how you feel about Jerry Cardinale and Redbird off the pitch, if you have 4 coaches in 12 months, you have failed in your recruitment. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's as simple as that.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Absolutely. exactly. There's no arguing about that. Pulisic penalty miss. Pulisic was really poor. Obviously, a bit of controversy this week about we've seen denials about his relationship with Conceição and stories that the two don't get on. That Pulisic even wants to leave the club if Conceição stays past the summer. Pulisic denied it. The club denied it. So yeah, that's should be the end of that. But obviously, the performance on the pitch was not good, and I think his performances have suffered under Conceição. He hasn't been the same player under Conceição that he was before, and I think that's also, partly the decision to sign João Felix as well has complicated his role and where he plays and his status in the squad, and that isn't working out either at the moment. João Felix, again in this game, we saw some great flashes and moments in this game. There was one fantastic bit of play in the first half, him and Reinders, when Jimenez went through, and he did one really great kind of Del Piero curler from the corner edge that Milinkovic-Savic made a great save. But the problem with João Felix is it's always isolated flashes, isolated moments. We don't get enough of him consistently during games, and we certainly don't get any substance. Since that debut goal against Roma in the Coppa Italia, he's got 0 goals and 0 assists, and this is the problem. João Felix, we need substance from him. Milan needs substance from him. If they're going to get in the top four, they need goals and assists from João Felix. They don't need a great bit of skill, a great flash here, a great moment there. We need substance. We need numbers. We need big goals. We need big moments. And we're not getting that. So that adds, I think, to the Pulisic issue, and it adds to the kind of what does Conceição do in terms of, he tried the Fab Four again in this game. It didn't really work. They got the equaliser through Reinders. When Reinders moved into his proper position, we then started to see Reinders play at his best. He nearly scored another goal, and he's equalised with a great finish. So, Conceição also has decisions now going forward. Does he stick with João Felix? Does he stick with the Fab Four? Which of these Fab Four misses out? It all adds to the kind of, I guess, the confusion of what, where Milan are and what they do going forward.
100%. I saw something. I'm not sure if he actually said this, but one of these Italian journalists, Fabio Ravezzani, said about João Felix that he's as handsome as he's useless, which is a bit too far, I think, in terms of criticism. Like, you can criticize players' performances, but I feel that you cross a line when you go into these kind of personal attacks. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that he's useless, but I would go so far as to say that so far in his career, we've not seen him be able to express the talent that we all kind of expect him to have. He's not concrete in front of goal, in the sense that he doesn't deliver the numbers in terms of points and goals. He kind of falls off. Like you said, he has a great start and then he falls off. And like you said, flashes and moments. But I think the problem is, I think they've killed. I think Milan, the road to redemption for Milan goes through Reinders. I would build around him, and everything else I would build around. I would accommodate him. I think Reinders is the one. If I was to bet on a horse to guide me through this, I would go with Reinders. I would build around Reinders, and if that means, sacking other players and getting rid of other players, then I would do that, because I think Reinders is good enough. I think he's important enough and has shown that he's qualitatively good enough to be able to lead this Milan. Playing João Felix, Jimenez, Leao, Pulisic and Reinders just means Milan aren't balanced so far, we've seen. And that causes insecurity and uncertainty in a team that has these mental collapses and brain farts. And that's the last thing Milan need, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, big week. I do want to talk very quickly about Vanja Milinkovic-Savic for
Mhm.
Torino, who was an absolute monster in this game. He saved the penalty from Pulisic, which means that he's faced 5 penalties this season, and he saved 4 of those 5 penalties, which is absolutely astonishing. But it wasn't just that. He made world-class saves in this game from Jimenez in the first half, where he fingertipped it over, from Reinders in the second half. These are two shots. But that's the Reinders one. He's going the wrong way and he saves it. Those are shots that would have beaten 90% of goalkeepers, I think, in Serie A. He's having an incredible season. He's statistically the best goalkeeper in Serie A. He has the highest. How do I describe this? The highest differential between the number of goals Torino should have conceded this season compared to their expected goals against, of over 7. So Torino or Milinkovic-Savic should have conceded 7 goals more than they have this season.
Mm.
Thanks to Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, they've conceded over 7 goals less. And that is astonishing. That's the best record in Serie A for a goalkeeper, and that I think that says it all. And performances like this says it all. Actually, I think 4 of the top 10 performances of the season for 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 goals prevented in a game are Milinkovic-Savic, and he's first as well. So I mean, he put in a clinic in this game. He's ready for a big club, isn't he, Nima?
Yeah, I think we can say that he's ready for a bigger club than Torino for sure. I still have some doubts. I don't think he's as bad with his feet as some make out,
No, I think
but
he's great with his feet.
I
His
think he's good with
distribution
his
is
feet.
good.
Yeah, his distribution is good, but I'm thinking of teams that want to build from the back, if you know what I mean. I'm a little bit. I want to see more before I say something there, but I do think he's good with the ball at his feet. I've seen some criticize him and say that he's not too good at blah blah blah. I don't share that criticism. I want to wait and see before I make a kind of call on that. But I do think that he's been consistently the best goalkeeper in the Serie A. I think so this season. I think he's been astonishingly good. Um, Head and shoulders above everyone else. And to be honest, I think he's been underrated for quite a few years now in the Serie A as a goalkeeper. This season, of course, he's taken it to a different level, and he's definitely ready for a bigger club than Torino. Question is, where does he go? Personally, I think Napoli should be looking at him because I don't rate Meret. I've never rated Meret. And I think Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, the character he has, the fiery character he is, and the way that he dominates his box, and I think Napoli should probably go after him. I don't see Inter doing it. He doesn't. I don't think he fits the character of what they're looking for with Josep Martinez there, and they just spent quite a bit of money to bring him in. They got Jan Sommer there, who's they still believe in. Milan got Mike Mignon, and they want to extend his contract. You got Di Gregorio at Juve, who they just bought. And then of course Atalanta. I've got Carnesecchi, who also is incredible for making mental saves that no human being understands how he makes them. So you remove all of those, maybe then it's like, okay, well, Napoli, if they finish in the top 4, they should probably go for him, and or Lazio if Provedel is having a which we've been talking about, he's
Yeah.
not
Well,
been
let's
good
talk
enough.
about Provedel's Lazio then.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he is ready for a bigger move.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Provedel's Lazio. They drew 0-0 against Venezia. Draw that's really no good for either team. Venezia needed a win desperately in the relegation fight, and they fall further away because from the relegation fight. Actually, it was some of the other rivals won this weekend, as we'll come to. But Lazio needed the win for the top 4, and they fall 2 points behind Juventus. And just like all the other teams in the top 4, or even all of the teams at the top, really, apart from Atalanta and Juve, very poor performance. Lucky to draw. I think the first half was tight, no chances really, except for a big Dia chance. Second half, Venezia completely dominated. They missed a number of chances. They fluffed so many transitions in this game, Venezia, where Lazio, I don't know, they lost the ball so many times in the centre of the pitch, allowing Venezia to break on them like 4-on-4, and Venezia kept fluffing it so many times because their attack is just not very good. Lazio, for the first time, after us jinxing them, praising them how physically good they look this season, they physically looked really flat in this game, really flat, and they really fell away in the second half. I don't know if it was just a case of finally, all these matches caught up with them. Don't know if it was they missed Ravella in midfield. I think probably they couldn't really control and construct the play with him without Ravella, and maybe missing Castellanos, his help in like building up the play. Castellanos and Noslin really struggled. Just maybe just an off day for Lazio. Everyone has them now and again. Just really poor. Venezia should have won this game, in my opinion.
It's hard to disagree with you there, but I'm surprised about what happened. That Lazio struggled as much as they did. I mean, the second half particularly, Lazio were just they had a lot of possession, but they didn't create much. They didn't create anything. But it's a weird one. I didn't expect Lazio to do that. But then again, we have to be kind to Lazio in the sense that this is, they're kind of overperforming. No one is expecting them to push for a top 4 position. No one expected them to win the league stage of the Europa League. And they're actually in a good position to go far there. And I hope that they do. I've got this manifesting the Derby della Capitale final in the Europa League into reality. And now they're on the opposite ends of the draw. So I need a Lazio-Roma final in the Europa League. And if Roma don't make it, well, I hope Lazio go all the way. I like their draw. I think they're overperforming and they're playing well. And, sometimes there's going to be a reaction. Like you said, everyone's going to have an off day. But I'm surprised that it came against Venezia. I really am. That I'm very surprised by. I expected them to kind of win this game rather comfortably without too much problems, if I'm perfectly honest.
Okay, rest of the weekend fixtures: Lecce 0, Udinese 1. Let me just pause on there because I had an incredible incident with Lorenzo Lucca where Udinese won a penalty, which I also want to say is a ridiculous penalty. Drives me mad that these penalties get given where the arm across, and at least the Serie A referee came out and said it was a bad call, but so at least they agreed that it was a terrible call, but ridiculous penalty for the arm across the player.
It's in his face.
Yeah, absolutely mad.
No, but it's in his face. Like you're fighting for the ball and you put the arm into a player's face. Yes, Lovric exaggerates the contact. There's no doubt about that. But you can't. You're responsible for your feet and your arms. And if you put your arm or elbow into the face of another player, and he goes down, the referee doesn't see it, VAR picks it up, the referee looks at it, there's always going to be one outcome there.
Well, again, it's down to natural movement of a player. In that scenario, it's a completely natural movement. If we're given a penalty,
doesn't matter. Fouls are also natural.
If we're given a penalty for that, we're also given a penalty for the ridiculous Hien one as well.
I don't think so, because the difference is with Hien is that he's first to the ball. He's holding off a player. They're not fighting for the same ball. Hien's actually in control of that ball, and he's pushing away the player. So there is the issue there is that did the contact warrant enough of a penalty? Well, it doesn't, because his fingers isn't in the opponent's eyes; it's towards his face, and it doesn't warrant a penalty. That contact here, they're fighting for the ball, and you use your arm in a wrong way to gain control and win that battle by going to your opponent's face. Yes, again, Lovric completely exaggerates and rolls over. He could have rolled all the way to the Nile for all I care. It doesn't matter. The contact is there. You can't do that, and referees are told.
But
referees are told to protect the health.
That's a completely natural movement. When two players are battling for the ball,
doesn't matter if it's natural. You're not allowed to put your arm into the face of an opponent.
Well, look, I've said that. Everyone knows my opinion. I think it's ridiculous. All I'm saying is also the referee came onto the zone and said it was the wrong call from the official representative. So,
but they want to protect the health, the safety of the players, which includes the face and eyes. They don't want eye gouging, so they're told to to prioritize these things to prevent that from happening. Again, is the contact is Lovric exaggerating the contact? Of course he is. Anyone can see that. It was a Neymar rolling, but still the contact is there. He's not in control of the ball. They're fighting for the ball. He puts his arm in his face. Lovric goes down, and the referee probably didn't pick that up. The VAR did. There's only going to be one outcome from that.
Well,
So I don't think this is an outrage.
Well,
I think
not according
players need to be
not according to the referee representative and Dusan. So that just adds to the confusion because he said it was an incorrect call. So what do you want me to say?
No,
that's what
it's
he said.
weird.
So that adds even more confusion then because then we don't know what is enough contact or what is that constitutes and what doesn't constitute.
No, but if you compare to the Hien thing, Hien is in control of the ball. Nilsson isn't anywhere near him. He's trying to get himself into the ball. Hien pushes Nilsson away, and there's contact to his face.
That's the point. The point is that we don't know, but we don't know based on the law. You know what I think. I think it's an absolute disgusting that a penalty can get given for something that's a complete natural movement for anyone that's ever played football. But okay, there's the law. The law is the law. But based on the law, we don't know either because the official referee's coming on TV and saying it was the wrong call. And then we have the Hien one where, we're having referees come on and also be a little bit confusing as well. I saw the referee representative go on to CBS and she wasn't really quite clear either on whether that should be a penalty or not. And so what is a penalty for these kind of instances where you put the hand?
Yes, there is confusion here. I think it's, and again, I think it all goes down to the protocol of the VAR, what constitutes a clear and obvious error, what doesn't. And they're not clear in their communication.
This wasn't even the most controversial aspect of this penalty, was it?
No. I mean, Lorenzo Lucca, that is one of the most embarrassing things I've seen on a football pitch. Like when Biol is there yelling at him to stop behaving like a child because Tovan is the designated penalty taker, and Alexis Sanchez talks to him, Tovan talks to him, Biol talks to him. I mean, everyone except for this Udinese president spoke to him to kind of get him out of this, and he doesn't give a damn. Buries the penalty, good penalty, and then is substituted off 3, 4, 5 minutes later. It was a cartoonish phase, and Runjajic correctly took him off because you can't piss on your teammates like that. It was really, really, really an embarrassing situation. It was genuinely cringy.
Even the Lecce players were like trying to...
Even them were trying to take the ball away from him and save him from himself. Yeah. Like when your opponents are trying to save you from yourself, maybe that should be a sign that you should probably reevaluate your actions and your decisions.
Yeah, for sure.
He didn't.
The last two games, quickly. Parma 2, Bologna 0. So a win on the debut for Christian Kivu. On the bench of Parma, very important win for them in their relegation race, blow for Bologna in the top 4 race. And then Verona 1, Fiorentina 0, which was a very late goal. 3 defeats in a row for Fiorentina since that 3-0 win over Inter. And their top 4 hopes now, they're starting to fall away from the top 4, which is kind of what was always expected, to be honest, what I always expected. But more... strangely, the January signings haven't been working. On paper, they look good, but they're not working. Those January signings, they seem to have destabilised the team, if anything, those January signings. But the most worrying aspect was the Moise incident, wasn't it, Nima?
I don't understand why he wasn't taken off immediately.
Yeah.
I don't understand since when, like, head injuries are serious.
Yeah, the Fiorentina... The Fiorentina medics and doctors are getting a bit of a hammering over this decision to send him back on.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a head injury and you saw how he looked, it looked like a concussion.
Yeah,
and
swelling on the face as well, which is
and he didn't look good at all. I don't understand why he was back on.
Yeah,
to me, this is mind-boggling. I don't understand what happened there, and I hope he's okay. I hope he doesn't get any serious issues from this because I don't know, man. And the collapse afterwards, and it's Fiorentina again. Like, you think of all the clubs in Italy or the world that would be on top of these situations, it would be Fiorentina after what they've been through, no?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mad. mad.
Yeah,
No,
mad.
it
But
really is insane.
yeah,
It was horrible scenes. I didn't like that at all. It really gave like a lump in my stomach watching that.
yeah, hopefully he's going to be okay and everything. It's obviously not heart related, so that's hopefully he will make a full recovery and everything.
But
Roma,
Verona winning that is crazy.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're on 26 points now, and they're ahead of Cagliari, Lecce, Parma. I mean, they're going to stay up, aren't they? I mean, they just keep doing it. How do they keep doing it? It's mental. It's like I think it was Patrick who said on the Q&A pod that like every season, Verona look at the teams below, look at all the teams, and they go like, okay, at least two of them are going to suck. They're going to be at the bottom. All we need to do is be better than one more, and we stay up. and they keep doing it. I think it's extraordinary to me. It really is.
yeah, for sure. Okay, let's finish off. Roma Monza, by the way, on Monday evening. Let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie ASS of the week. So Baggio, very simply for me, I'm going for Paulo Dybala. Two magical goals in what was a horrific week in the Champions League. Roma did save it a little bit for Italy. Gave us something to watch at least for the rest of the season. Two magical goals from Dybala in that game out of nothing. They're losing 1-0 as well to Porto. It looks like they might go out, and then two brilliant goals. The first that plays the 1-2, and then outside of the boot, but the second one was vintage Dybala, a bit like his goal against Barcelona for Juventus in that famous 3-0. Very similar to that. Picked up the ball in the right channel, left foot, just whipped it in near post. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Amazing to watch. Also because, and I tweeted this, because Paulo Dybala, these kind of players are a dying breed. We just don't have these kind of fantasistas, these kind of magicians, number 10s, these players that can score goals out of nothing, that you want to watch the game just for them. They're individuals, and we just don't have these players. They're all just robots and runners and pressers and
system
players. Yeah, and so Dybala's 32 this year. Yeah, he's not going to have that much long left, and obviously he's not the same player he was, but he can still produce moments of genius like this, and just cherish it now because
absolutely.
There's
But I got to say, Athletic Bilbao next round is a
tough,
tricky,
very tough game. Yeah,
if they can go through from that, then I'll then we can start dreaming of a
if they go through that, then we can start thinking of them getting to the final. Yeah,
with and hopefully against Lazio, Derby della Capitale
they're very
final.
tough because they're 6 points off the top of La Liga. Athletic Bilbao, they're having a great season.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, isn't the final of the Europa League played in
Bilbao? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the refs won't be giving Roma any favours. Ranieri's going to be going off on Roberto Rossetti again.
The Rossetti wars will rage on if Roma feel that they are treated in a disadvantaged way.
Premface of the week, Nima. It's Jamie Carragher again, 3 times in a row, a hat trick for Carragher.
Should just name this the Carragher of the week. I mean, at this point, he had a bit of a shocker. He's being absolutely destroyed, and this the funny thing is that Michael Richards tried to save him, but he wasn't having it. Like, Michael Richards did his best to save Jamie Carragher. He even says, I mean, I think it's on Sky Sport, they're talking about Mohamed Salah and whether or not he should be in the conversation for Ballon d'Or and so on and so forth. And Carragher says something that, along the lines of, yeah, but he doesn't play in too many big competitions. Okay, Champions League, Premier League, but the AFCON isn't a big tournament, or whatever he says, or a big enough tournament, or a major tournament. And Michael Richards literally tries to save him by saying, just to be clear, AFCON is a major tournament, because otherwise you're going to get criticized for that. And he just moans and scoffs at him. And Sky Sports have just cut that out, that entire clip out, that part out from the thing they put on YouTube. It's just this guy, man. This guy.
Yeah, Jamie Carragher, Serie ASS of the week, we've got quite a few. So,
Lorenzo Lucca, to
as
me.
discussed. Gian Piero Gasperini, as discussed.
Yeah.
Serie A Champions League humiliation, as discussed.
last Thursday.
And then finally, the best of all, though, which we can discuss now, Serie A TV rights, which everybody knows is a complete shambles, and it reached a new low this week because we have been getting numerous complaints from Serie A fans in Australia, as they're basically for the last few weeks been at best struggling to watch Serie A games, at worst just unable to watch them full stop, because the games on BN app are just the app is barely workable right now. The games keep cutting out, freezing. The app keeps it's fuzzy, it's going down. It's impossible for them to even contact anyone to correct it. There's no one to contact. Australian Serie A fans who already get up at stupid o'clock to watch these
Yeah,
games.
they're literally on the other side of the world. They like it's already difficult for them to enjoy these games because of the time difference.
Yeah, exactly. Especially as a lot of them are Juventus and Milan fans, and it's not been pleasant getting up at early in the morning to watch them recently, and then you can't even watch them at all. This has been going on for a few weeks now, and no one can seem to get hold of anybody to correct this. They're desperate, so they're reaching out to people like us. Like, what the hell do we do? We try.
Oh my
We can't watch
God.
the games. There's no one to contact. I mean, it's 2025, and there's no customer service in
If
2025.
you cared about your product, you make sure that this doesn't happen. You put guarantees in place that there is. You don't just sell it off and then don't care about it anymore because you understand that you need to protect the image of your product, but they don't. They don't care. And after everything that happened with beIN Sports and Qatar and the deal in the Middle East and North Africa region, I mean, of course they're not going to care. Qatar don't give a damn. Who own beIN Sports, by the way. So it's no, this is just it's a mess. All of those TV deals need to. It's like at this point you need like a crisis commission to come in, an external commission to come in and review the entire TV deal structure of the Serie A outside of Italy, including inside Italy. Like basically just go through it and say who did what, how and when, and how do we fix it, and start over again. It's an absolute
No,
mess.
and also just to go into more detail here. I mean, yes, we know that obviously Qatar and Saudi Arabia are the big problems they've had there, and that as a result, Qatar, they don't care at all. beIN don't care about Serie A at all. But from a Serie A level, first of all, they should be again, like we said last week, they should be looking at who they sell the TV rights to, because if they can't put on a good show, I mean, if they can't
Or
even show the
maybe,
games,
or maybe,
which is the basic
if you,
requirement, then that's
yeah,
a
no,
problem.
but wait, maybe don't piss off beIN Sports in other deals and then sell them the deals in other areas. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah. Listen, that's yeah, for sure. That's the bigger picture. But I mean, if you're in charge of Serie A TV rights, Anna Guarnerio and her team and the teams, the people that are in charge, right? What are they doing to monitor all the markets that own, and all the companies that own Serie A rights? What are they doing to monitor it? Because they surely have to be aware that in Australia, people haven't been able to watch the games for weeks. What are they doing? Do they even know? Do you think they even know? I bet they don't even know.
I think they
They
know.
probably don't
I
even
think
know.
on
So they
some
should be
level
on
they
top
know.
of this. But also, obviously, first and foremost, beIN, they should be on top of it. They should, it's their product. And if people were paying to watch Serie A, then they're responsible. First of all, they should be able to watch it. But if things go wrong, and occasionally things will go wrong, occasionally. I mean, I never see it happen in England, but okay, this is the rest of the world. If something does go wrong and you can't watch Serie A in Australia, then beIN need to fix it. And they need to have customer service that people, contact them to report, things that are going wrong, that they should be able to and so they haven't even been able to contact them, let alone try and fix it. But also, Serie A, the Serie A, Anna Guarnerio and her team should be monitoring this. They should be aware, and they should be kicking the asses of beIN Sports and saying, "Look, you've bought the TV rights and you're not even showing it." But it's not just here. I also saw this weekend. in a lot of complaints in England. People couldn't
Yeah, the one
one
football.
football. Yeah, they
I
couldn't
saw
watch the
that.
game
Yeah,
with one football either. So
yeah, I saw that. There was the videos looked like they were like Nintendo, like 8-bit from when I was a kid.
yeah.
That was the graphic level, the imagery. But this is what
No, it
look,
looked
if
like. Do you know what it looked like? It looked like One Football's the One Football app this weekend. It looked like, like about 30 years ago when you used to record like a movie on a VHS cassette, and
yeah,
you've watched it so many times that
you've worn it
you
down.
worn it down, and then you get
Mm,
lines coming across. That's what it looked like. It looked like VHS 1992.
mm. Which is very, which is kind of right in character and on brand
Yeah.
for the Serie A and how it's marketed. But it's I just feel that if this were the Premier League, they would have been on top of it. They would have demanded answers. They would have cared. They would have been on, like it would not go to that level. Like, or if it something had gone wrong, they would have addressed it,
I
and they
know.
would have
I
been.
honestly, I can't. I mean, I don't watch every single Premier League game, but I can't even remember this ever happening not in England anyway. I can't ever remember like you not being able to watch a Premier League game,
No.
or even not being able to watch, another game that say Sky Sports, for example, are showing in the UK. I can't remember that ever happening because they're professional and they're competent. you know,
Mm.
I can't remember that ever
Well, and
happening.
they also take care of their product. They care about their product. They care about their product all the way from production to sale to marketing to delivering to the consumer, because they understand that they have to be involved in all of these different steps. Otherwise, because at the end of the day, regardless of who buys your product, it's your product. The Serie A, if in Sports or whoever buys a rights, they can just dump it the next cycle and go somewhere else. You're the one who has to take care and care enough to make sure that your product is sold, marketed, presented in the right way, so that it continues to be attractive.
Yeah.
That's how it has to be, and it doesn't seem like that, but the Serie A does that, unfortunately. But as
No.
for reasons we've explained a million times, and I'm frankly getting tired of talking about it, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I'm fed up of talking about this incompetence. It's cartoonish and embarrassing at this point. It's just 2025, and this is where we are. I mean,
Insane, isn't it?
sorry, but it's just
No, no,
I'm fed up.
no,
I'm fed up. I'm as fed up with this as you are about talking about the stadiums.
no, I know, but this is just genuinely hilarious. Just the thought that people, Serie A fans in Australia are like paying to watch Serie A, and then they can't
On
even.
an app that doesn't have customer service and doesn't work. And I mean, I don't know what to say.
To be fair, though, I do think that in 2025, generally, customer service all around the world
Yes,
is
yeah,
at a record
it's
low.
awful.
Like
It's
if
awful.
anything ever goes wrong, like
No one's in
and you need to
charge.
call a call service, and they're always like based out in in another country where they can't even speak
Yeah.
the language, and then and then you never, it's impossible to get any customer service generally. But this is different though. This is you're paying for a private service here, I guess you could call it, couldn't you? And you can't even you're paying for it and you can't get hold of them. It's
You would
disgraceful.
think that people care more about what they're selling and the product, and the fact that it's on beIN Sports after what happened with those TV rights, where beIN Sports were on the war path, literally on the war path, feeling that they were mistreated by the Serie A, accepting a lower money offer for MENA, for the Middle East North African region, prompting them to essentially vow that they're never going to work with Serie A again. And they still have their. I mean, it's just, it's so cringe. It's so cringe. The whole thing is so cringe.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, let's leave it at that. We'll be back for later in the week for Q&A. Until next time, ciao, ciao.